Welcome to video number 7 in the SKYMASTER F15 XXL video series. Big video. We are putting the nose of the aircraft on in this video. Last video, much of it was focused around the mess and getting stuff organized and ready to put the tray in. Tray is all ready to go. Everything's pre-done up here, ready to install. Next thing to work on before we bolt the nose on is getting our cockpits sorted out. That's a bit of a tricky one because there's no guidance or anything in this, but I think we have so much room in this area that I don't think it's going to be an issue at all. So I've got some plans for that. Other thing I'm doing on this plane is I'm doing a custom setup for the nose. So what I want to do is have an insert in the nose, kind of like what we did on the SU previously, but I want it to be all 3D printed. This is going to be a bit of a head scratcher for me because this dimension is sort of circular, but not quite, but pretty close. So this is going to take some design theory, ideas, brain work here, but I just finished the trace out of this. So I just took the front of the fuselage, laid it on top of here, and this gave us our trace out of the front of the aircraft. So some of the things to think about here, I'll show you guys from edge to edge. So we are 230 on this spot, 230 millimeters. So this is 230. And this one, I think, is 240. Yes. 240, 238 if we're looking at that specifically. So we'll go 238. Now the only kicker is, so I want that 3D piece to bolt onto here, and it's going to have a bunch of our stuff mounted on here. So that front nose section is essentially what you're taking off in between flights. So it's going to have the GSU screens, it's going to have the fueling port, it's going to have the airport, it's going to, like the airport to fill up air. It's going to have all of our extensions run to the front as well too for our programming, our battery plugs, all that stuff is going to be on that front section. So I also have one of my 4 battery holders. Now I need to make a little bit larger battery holder, but again, I was just playing with this as far as positioning goes. And if we look here in the aircraft, so it's kind of sitting right like this, that's what I'm looking at. But I'm going to build a box for the batteries. So it's going to be very similar to this, but it's going to be basically a box shape is the idea. So it's going to be a little bit wider than this. And of course, it's going to come up a little bit depending on our batteries dimensions that we're putting in here. I already know what batteries we're putting in, but this was just to get our rough idea. This line here is the top of the existing box, and we'll have to extend that up. So that's a starting point for design. We'll come back to this. I just wanted to show you guys my brain thinking here and how we're getting that stuff worked out. So we're going to work on getting our cockpit mounted. So if we look at this guy, basically I've already done some pre-work here. The cockpit itself is in 4 pieces. So this is the front cockpit, and basically the back of the cockpit comes, from my measuring and stuff, comes right to the front edge of this second opening or guide opening for the canopy. So this is kind of where our front cockpit's going to get mounted. The dash panel here sits right like this, so that's going to be like that. Now, like I said, there's so much room in here that it's nice that we do have some good wiggle room to play with. Getting these cockpits in and out is going to be quite easy. Now, what I'm thinking about doing here is just putting some horizontal supports on. So with this mounted in this position, there's going to be a horizontal support coming across the bottom, and then one that comes kind of at the front of the cockpit right here. So when you want to take this out, essentially just undo your screws right there, maybe one in the center between the guy's legs, and this comes right out. So it'll be nice and simple and easy to remove if needed, but there's so little equipment mounted in this area that you should really never have to take it out. So I'm going to get some strips of aircraft ply done up here, and that'll allow me to get those sized to support the cockpit. I'm probably going to just spot glue them in place with some CA, and then we'll add some carbon or fiberglass supports going to the structure of the fuselage. But that, guys, is the plan. All right, so the cockpit mock-up has been completed. There's a shot with the canopy on. Now our pilots are a little bit oversized, but in length, but as far as proportion goes, they're really well sized for this aircraft. So we did chop off their legs, which, oh well, but you don't see that because they're tucked underneath the panel and everything. So pull this off and I'll show you how we're doing this. So essentially we've got the same system on both the front and the back cockpit. So if you look at the cross member here, this gets 2 holes put in the back of the cockpit tub, and then screws get inserted right down there. So you just reach in there with an Allen key, no problem. The front one, fortunately, actually lined up with a former perfectly. So we've got that same piece but flipped on its end, and that is all this is spot glued in place with CA right now. So those are run across the former, and then it's exactly the same thing on the next one, but I did put a riser underneath right here, so it's essentially 2 of these high just for positioning and stuff. And then the front piece here, this is going to get glued to this cockpit tub, the front tub, which is going to all come out as one piece. And then there's a cross member in there, right in the middle of your screen there, that this just sits on top of. So nice, simple mounting, and maybe I can show you there. There's the screw right in the bottom of the cockpit tub. So that is our cockpit mock-up. So now I'm going to pull this cockpit out and we can reinforce all of our joints here. And I think that is going to be good. Now this piece just sits in there. It's held in place with this cockpit tub right there, tucked in between the former work and this. But we do need to get rid of this piece right in this area here, so it doesn't interfere with the canopy opening and closing. So if you look in there, you can see that piece is right in that little hole, which is the slot where the canopy goes. So we'll just mark that out, and then we'll just chop that out so it doesn't interfere with anything. All right, so just pulling the cockpit back out now to get things all glued and solidified. I just glued the front dash panel here to the cockpit tub. So just waiting for that epoxy to do its thing, and then we will be able to take that front one out, and I think it should all stay together quite well. So while we're waiting for that to do its thing, we are going to put our tray in. Now we're waiting for a couple parts for our UATs, otherwise we'd have the UATs installed, but we'll put those guys in afterwards. But we are ready to run this or put that plate in. Now everything's pretty much good to go. We essentially have all of these servo leads to come up through here and go to their appropriate locations. And the only thing that's going to be coming to the SKYMASTER box now is some other leads that are coming from the receiver. So we'll run those afterwards. And then what we're also going to do is run these guys in this hole as well, I think. That's just to allow us to be able to easily run some other leads through the through hole later on, because we're going to have some more stuff coming from the front. And tray is in place. Went in very well, nice and snug. There's not lots of room underneath, but it's in. We've got all of our leads plugged in that came through the tray, and we're basically missing only 2 leads at this point. So port number 7, which is our nose steering, and then another port on that side, which I can't remember what it is, but 18, which is pilots. So we're missing 18 and 7. So yeah, basically the nose is ready to get put on once I get the leads done up here for all of our airlines. So I did mark these guys before we put the tray in, so we know what these 3 green and yellow pairs are. So we've got air brake, door 2, and door 1. So air brake is easy, open, close. Door 2 is easy. Those lines just come up and go open, close. Door number 1, we've got to tee off here and go to door number 1 and then also go forward because our nose door opens and closes with the gear. So that's what we have to do on the right side of the tray, left side of the tray, sort of the similar thing. We've got landing gear here. So we've got blue, which goes to blue, red, which goes to this black one. And then our gear, when we install it from the nose section, that gets plugged into the other side of the T right there. So that's pretty straightforward as far as that stuff goes. And then our black line is our brake, and that just goes right to our brake output right there. So I'm gonna get all those guys hooked up, and then we are ready to bolt our nose onto the aircraft. And one final shot of the mess before we bolt that nose onto the aircraft. So looking good. This is always such a wonderful milestone in a project like this. All right, so we got our Loctite ready. We've got our bolts ready. And it is time to bolt this thing up. All right, so just got the first 2 fasteners installed here. And I tell you, it is nice not to have a whole bunch of equipment in the nose. It's kind of nice just to be able to run everything almost to the center part of the fuselage there. If we did have a bunch of equipment in the nose, some of those wire leads would be very, very long. I mean, you're adding another 3-4 feet to what we already have. So we got Loctite on those guys. We're just getting them snugged up. And then we'll put the bottom 2 in. And of course, at this point, the plane gets much, much bigger. Now there is one center one in the bottom, right behind the gear. And I think that one's gonna be pretty tricky to get to, but I think we can get to it through the door opening. So these guys, I'm just gonna tighten up now because we've got 4 installed and everything should be nice and lined up now. So we'll get those guys done. And then we'll go on the underside and check out the bottom access. So there she is. The last time it looked like that is when we unboxed it. So it is ginormous. All right, so with the fuselage bolted together, we kind of ran the wires and tubes and everything where they needed to go. So the front stuff goes backwards, the back stuff goes forwards. All of our wires go through there. So still a lot to do as far as organizing goes, but this is a huge step accomplished in this aircraft. So last thing we're gonna do tonight is get some of our gluing done. So we need to glue these supports as a final step to make sure that they don't move. So we're gonna glue those with aero epoxy all the way around. And then also we're gonna glue our compressor into the front as well too. So our compressor here, we just take a little bit of high sol, put it on the bottom plates there, and that gets installed right in the nose section like that. All right, so mixed up some high sol 9462, and we've got a couple pieces or 4 pieces of fiberglass cloth. This is like 4-ounce stuff, so it's quite heavy. And these pieces are going to be installed in these corner joints here. So we're gonna high sol all the way around that wood, but this just gives it a little bit of extra grip and support on the fuselage side, obviously. So this stuff's pretty straightforward, doesn't need to be anything crazy beautiful. Basically just getting high sol on both surfaces. And then we can pop our fiberglass cloth on there and just give it a nice squish session here. Now, although the high sol is quite thick, it does still get absorbed into the cloth. You can see it there coming through, which is exactly what we're after. Perfect. And the rest of the way around, just take some high sol on my finger and get a nice fillet of glue around the rest of the support. So that's what we're doing on these horizontal pieces or the flat pieces. On the verticals here, we're just going to go in and put high sol around the joint. All right, so this is some funny perspective. That SU-30 from SKYMASTER, if you've seen one or been around one in person, it is a gigantic aircraft. The 15 absolutely makes that SU look like a dwarf. So there's some comparison shot for you. So the furthest back point of the F15 is where the tail cones of the SU would be. So those are level at the back of each plane. And the F15 without cones on the nose is about 2 feet longer than the SU. Oh my gosh, that is crazy. It is a monster. Oh man. I thought that shot would be kind of funny. All right, so mounting our pilots. Front one here is done. We're gonna do the exact same method as we did on this front one. So first thing is these straps are about this much too long. So I undid the headrest, shortened these straps up so they're more appropriate to the guy's shoulder height. And then I take the bottom straps, pull them tight, and glue them to the seat. So the guy is nicely fastened and solid. So we've done the same thing here, loosened the head off a little bit, the headrest, and pulled the strap through, glued it in place, and then when you pull the headrest, tighten it down, there's a nut right here that holds everything in place. And now if we take our pilot and tuck him into the seat, of course this one we've cut his legs off as well too, and we want the servo cable to do the same thing and come out the same side on the back, which is that side, like that. Lift your arms, buddy. And then as we do this strap up here, you can see that the pilot kind of just sucks the pilot down and really works out quite nice. So now I'll just take a little bit of CA to hold the strap in place. And once I get the strap sized up and mounted to where I'm happy, then what I'll do is I will take some shoe goop and just put it over top of the strap to hold it in place as well. So just take some pliers, cinch that down into the glue, and then we'll put a little bit more over top so both of the strap pieces are joined together. And again, a little bit of kicker. Perfect, so that's nice and solid. And then we'll take this other strap on the other side and do the same thing. I just spray a bit of kicker on there first and then sink the strap into the CA. Now I've done pilot mounting quite a few different ways. There is lots of different ways to do it. Sometimes I use safety wire, like tie wire for fuel lines and stuff. Now on like some of the big CARF kits where you're using the large pilot and you've got wide open access area, I've done that on like the L39 previously. I have done that on some other kits as well too, and it works good. If the strap system works out well, this obviously is a little bit more invisible. Okay, so he is now mounted in there, and I just cut the excess of the strap off. Tuck that into the seat so it disappears like that. And that is kind of what we're after. And we'll do the same thing on this side. Tuck the excess in. Perfect. Now we take a little bit of shoe goop, or in this case, shoe goo, sorry. I often say goop because their other types are called goop, plumber's goop, but shoe is goo, not goop. So just a little bit on there, pretty much invisible once it's cured. And that is a mounted pilot. Now, when the cover goes over top of here, like this, you won't, of course, see his legs at all, so they basically disappear underneath there, which is great. So he's nice and buried down. I wanted to get these guys, their heads resting on the headrest so it's sized appropriately. And now we'll just lay this guy in place, and then we'll put the canopy on and I'll show you guys what it looks like. So I'm just lining up the back holes so we know they're in the right spot. So those guys are exactly where they're gonna go. Let me grab the canopy and we'll put that on. Awesome, I love those red helmets. They show up so nice. Nice contrast to the red on the kit. Very cool. So there is our pilots installed in the pilot seats. Looks wonderful. Now all I'm going to do in this case is we're going to take some of our little servo plugs, our little servo mounting plugs, like we used on the main board right there. And we'll have those mounted to the cross support. So one will be mounted to this cross support, another will be mounted to this cross support right there, and the wire is just going to plug right in. Because there's so little equipment underneath these cockpits and pilots, really I don't suspect those guys will really ever come out, but they're going to be very easy to come out if they need to. But that looks wonderful. So with the pilots done, it's now a good time to get our plugins for the pilots' heads to move completed. So we got a randomizer from Warbird Pilots. This is ultimately made by RC Geek, by Chris here. Chris has actually been on our podcast as well too. There's his information. And that brings up a good point. We have a podcast channel here at the Lighter Side of RC. It's called the RC Air Experience. I do it with my buddy Anthony. There's some links down below in the video description. But we've been doing it for about a year now. I can't remember how many episodes we have, 25 to 30, somewhere in that range. I've had amazing guests on that podcast channel. So if you're interested in podcasts, check it out, RC Air Experience on YouTube. We're not on the other podcast stuff with just audio. It's just on YouTube. So I love it. It's tons of fun. It's just great to meet and chat with different people in the industry. And we have had Chris from the RC Geek on our podcast as well. And this is the new randomizer. So it's important with the new randomizer that you look at the instructions. This is very important. It's quite a different unit than the previous randomizer. The previous one was a little bit larger, flat, only 2 outputs for the servos. This new one, these 6 pins are for programming, so don't use those, as it clearly states on the instructions. These first 4 are for outputs. You could have up to 4 random outputs on these ones. And then this one on the bottom here is for inputs. It's also important to make sure you pay attention to polarity. It is marked on the back, and then of course it's shown on the instructions. So that's the new unit that we'll be installing. All right, I'm gonna, just because we wanna get this printed and do a test print for it, I'm going to go do some design work and see if I can get this thing figured out. Initially, what I'm gonna do is do a circle, cut that portion off to this dimension right here, kind of do some rough guesstimates on the little cutouts there based on, you know, kind of visually how it's gonna work out. And we'll just print a test piece that's maybe 1 millimeter or so thick and see how that fits. Once we've got this piece, this full piece figured out and it's fitting in the plane and everything, then we can design all the other stuff that's gonna go on there. All right, so our test print is done. And this is why doing these prints is so critical, because it gives us an idea of what we need to adjust. So what I'm doing is just getting it lined up with the structure and the fuselage. So now we're parallel with that former that's right behind. And that's at least nice and even. So our actual holes here are here. So I'm going to mark the hole. And then I'm going to mark the area. So we pretty much have to move that down 75% from where it is. The other thing we can do here is we can make our width just a little bit wider. Our height is good for the circle, but we can add probably 5 millimeters in this direction. And that's going to work out very well. So with that, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to print another one of these test pieces. So this is just 1mm thick, PLA, printed nice and quick. And of course, beautiful quality. The bamboo printers are absolutely the way to go if you're getting a 3D printer. This thing is unbelievable how quick and good that prints. Just stunning. So I'm going to go make the adjustments on our program and we'll print this again. All right, so we got our final model printing here. There was a mid-generation one, which I'll show you guys when this piece is done, but we're printing this one, the final one. Hopefully it's the final one if everything measures properly. We're printing that in PETG carbon fiber. So that is that material right there. And then we also designed the battery box as well too. So the battery box is printing. That's got a long ways to go, about 3 hours. And that is PETG carbon fiber in black. And we had a special delivery arrive today. We got our fittings for our UATs, which is right here. So now we can get those UATs set up and installed in the aircraft, which is also good because then we can do our plumbing, which is part of the whole progressing forward, always moving forward. We start at the back, we move our way forward. All right, so UATs are assembled here on these double setups, which basically all the Digitechs are. I always put the one that we're pulling from at the top so it sucks the air out. If you're doing 2 tanks or a split or whatever, then you just rotate it and you use both of the outputs. So, and then it's also important to make sure you put your back plug in. If you don't put that plug in, you'll get fuel seeping out of that back hole. So anyways, those guys are ready to go in. So we're gonna get those bolted in place. All right, UATs are installed, so we're gonna get these things plumbed up next. So what we're doing is we're running a 6mm line to the center line of the UAT, and then we'll be running a 8mm line from the top portion here, which goes to the pickup on the main tanks. So those are basically the 2 lines that are running between our UATs and our fueling system. This guy here, which goes to our turbines, that comes off the fuel pump itself. And then we've got our fill line, which is the silver one on the bottom of the UATs, and both of those guys are gonna run forward to the very front of the plane. All right, so here's the iterations of the process for the front tray. So you guys saw this one. You saw me make some adjustments to this one in the clip. So I added 5mm to the width, moved the cutout here down a little bit, and came up with this one. Now, on this one, I took our standard little data terminal design and added it on there just so we had position. Really didn't take that much filament to do this. And that's what this green filament's for. This is PLA. I think this stuff came with the machine, so it's kind of like for test stuff. So that's what I use it for anyways. It prints nice and fast and very smooth. We don't generally use PLA in airplanes because it's not overly heat resistant. So. And then from here, I went in and added all of our cutouts and everything and came up with this. So the GSU holders stayed in exactly the same spot. Did the cutouts here for the wire, so that wire plugs into the GSU and just goes right through. These are our programming ports here. This is our standard plug receptacle that we use. That actually just friction fits in there very tight. The measurement is perfectly accurate, so I really don't need to glue that. It just really popped in there nice and tight. So we'll put 6 of those guys in. Probably some labels on these guys. It's going to be a little bit tight in this area is the only problem, because we're probably going to put our filler stuff right here, but we'll see. We've got some room down on the bottom that we can possibly put the filler stuff in, so we'll see how that works out. And then this is our battery plugs here. So this isn't the battery tray that we're using, but essentially the battery holder that we're using is sitting right in this area, and the plugs just go right in. The orientation or port doesn't matter because all 4 batteries are identical. And then just for reference, you can see what this thing looks like installed. So that is in place, fairly level right there to the former. So great, great fit. I love that. I think that is wicked. That turned out very nice. I'm very happy with it. Yeah, that's awesome. All right, and our battery box printed as well too. So I'll show you guys what that looks like. All put in here. So I think we're going to tuck it like this and probably run it up against the bottom of the plate. And that is going to be stellar. So for the battery box mounting, I'll put a piece of ply across the base of the fuselage. So that's going to go from this carbon piece to that carbon piece and just go right across. And then the tray will sit, or the battery box will sit right on top of that guy, just like that. Awesome. All right, so all of our plumbing is now completed. We've got our vent line installed on the underside of the aircraft like we talked about right there. We installed the Festo T right here, so obviously both of our tanks come to the T, and then the bottom of the T goes to the vent line. We've got keepers everywhere. Now, one of the important things is you want to make sure if you are running fuel line, so in a situation like this, we've got a pretty long run from our fuel pump to our turbines. So you want to make sure that that tube is supported. So where it goes through that former right there towards the turbine, we could have just left that, but then it would be dangling around in transport and everything during flight. And you know, eventually that tube's going to wear out. So you want to put keepers and make sure everything's nice and solid. Same thing as we come through here. So we go into 2 keepers there, 1 keeper there. So the tube is completely supported. One more step on the front here. We've got our front location painted. So I just painted that with black paint. Reason for that is when all that stuff's in place, you can still see the wood ring. So now it'll be nice and black. So we'll let that dry and we're going to move on to some other things here. So next thing I think I'm going to do is get our pilot plugins completed. So we'll get our randomizer mounted and we'll get everything run from those plugins to the randomizer, from the randomizer to the central box. And that is awesome. We call it the duck, the F15 quack quack. That looks like a duck. Got everything mocked up here. So basically we've got the plate screwed in place with 5 screws. I think that should be enough. I could always put one more there, but it's nice and solid. So the flexible part here will be pulling the batteries in and out, but that's nice and solid. We've got the plate on the bottom here. It's tucked forward or skewed forward. That's spot glued with CA right now. And then our battery holder here, I drilled 4 holes in the bottom, and that is going to go into the plate that's right back there. So this battery tray or plate is going to be removable. So we'll put 4 screws in through the inside here, and that'll be enough to hold it in place. And then if this needs to come out, obviously you have to undo those screws. But when those screws are done up, we've got this plate supporting it, the bottom plate supporting it, and then the screws are making sure it doesn't go anywhere. So that's going to be great. I am very happy with the way that turned out. That's awesome. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to high sol this area right here on the plate, just so we can let that cure and do its thing. Additionally, we mounted the randomizer right here. I just used some shoe goop and 1 drop of CA to hold it in place. The nice thing, or the reason I put it here, is when that cockpit's in place, this guy right here, well, 2 reasons actually. Number 1, that's out of the way and nothing's going to touch it. The second reason is when this guy is in its spot, which is right there, we can tuck, I think you can probably see that. We'll be able to get the adjusters with a screwdriver. So you can just tuck the screwdriver right in there and do any adjustments if you want to, need to. So great spot for the randomizer, out of the way, and it's going to work good. So we've run the wire with our button keepers. These button keepers are available on our website. I like them because they're nice, solid, single wire holders, which are great. So that goes back to our central box, plugged in port 18, and then we'll have 2 leads here coming out of these guys, and those are going to go underneath to the little receptacles right here, and then we'll have another one come this way, go along, and then go into this receptacle right there. All right, so we've got a few more lines run here. I'll just show you the details. We have our compressor input right here, or plug-in. That goes back with our wire bundle. We've got our keepers mounted to the side of the fuselage, so nice solid bundle going back. We've got our nose steering plug-in as well. This works out really well in this location because when that gear comes up, the the wire that's twisted around here just kind of loops around, and it's just great. It's out of the way. So both of those wires come to this spot right here, and these two are going to be hooked up to my shoelace that I ran through previously and run through our through hole fitting on the board right there, and they'll get plugged into their appropriate location. So nose steering goes in 7, compressor is going to go into our expander there. I did high sol the front plate here that we installed, so that's curing and doing its thing. And we got all of our pilot plugins run here as well too. And what I do with these guys is just mark them with a little white mark, and that way you know which way is signal. So generally what I always do with these things is the signal goes towards the center line of the aircraft in this case, or if it's mounted this way, the signal line goes towards the front of the aircraft. So if I was ever in doubt and it was hidden, that's the way I would do it, like the one down here. But I do mark them just in case. So initially I was thinking with the Canopy of running the air supply for both the lock and the Canopy up and down off the gear down leg. Now the only thing I'm second guessing is our lock. I think I would like that to be pressured all the time. I just don't want those locks. They're little G10 pieces that slide, and conceivably without pressure they could slide forward. So there's these little guys right here, and they just capture the hook that comes down on the Canopy. So, you know, I think I checked these guys as well too. I pressurized them for about an hour, and they're great holding air and everything. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to have the lock always pressurized. So that's just going to run off the air supply. And then as a just in case, we're going to run the Canopy open close off of the gear downside. So that kind of works out okay because we've got our gear downside kind of supply right here. And we've got all of our main air supply in the front, so we can have the valve for the locks mounted in the front. And I had this thought this morning in the shower, probably a good idea to double check that our nose cone actually will go on with this stuff in place. You never know, right? That'd be kind of one of those terrible things that, you know, you get everything done and ready and whatnot, and it doesn't fit. So what we'll do is we'll take a little bit of BVM dry lube here, and we'll put that on our receptacles. The benefit of that is it just helps everything slide in because these are fairly tight. All right, and the arrow points up here, so it's a little bit, you know, confusing sometimes when you take a look at this and you think, well, how is this mounting? But basically the arrow is the telltale sign there. So I'll just pop the bottom one in. And of course, we've talked about this during the unboxing, but the nose is a quick release setup. So it does work very well. So there's a pin on the underside here, and the whole G10 piece is spring loaded up and down. So we just take an Allen key, and from the bottom, push our pin in. There. Awesome. Yeah, we're hitting something here, so. Ah, yes. That's it. So again, this is the reason we do this stuff. So what happened, or happens, is the following. So if you look at the top section here, this is quite recessed. This is not recessed. It's very, very tight to the edge. So this is off position a little bit. Ideally, this former should be tucked in a little bit more. It's not, which is fine. We're not going to be, you know, trying to move that at this point, because that would be probably some good damage on the nose cone. So what's happening is this former right here is contacting our little piece right there. And of course, this whole piece here, the plate that I made, is tucked a little bit this way because my cutouts are positioned against the glue there. So This is kind of the worst case scenario where that is up in that far corner. All right, nose cone's all good. I just did a little bit of sanding right where that piece contacts the former, and didn't have to do much, didn't have to go all the way through the former, so that was good. And yeah, so everything clicks in place nicely. It's nice and tight and snug. So you can see right there, just did a little bit of sanding. When we mix up some high sol next time, I'll just put a little bead on the backside, but that's a non-issue there. So that is good. What that means now is that we can get this little tray here painted, and it's pretty much ready to install our battery box whenever we are ready to pop that guy in place. Now what I'm going to do with the battery box, our screws are kind of skewed towards the bottom side. You can see the little holes there of the battery box. So if we're just pretending that we're looking on the inside, I'm going to put a piece of fuzzy Velcro in here, and the fuzzy Velcro is going to add a little bit of a spacer so our screw heads don't interfere with anything. And once that's done, she'll be ready to install. All right, so we got our battery box all set up here. Changed things a little bit. So instead of gluing a strap to the side here, I made it a little bit more simple, and I put a piece of fuzzy Velcro on both sides, which is great. And then we've got some 3M Velcro strips, the double-sided stuff, and one goes on top, one goes on the bottom, or you could just use one, is probably fine. But the batteries, when they sit in there, they sit like this, so there's basically a top and a bottom area. So that's going to be nice and simple. And then we got it screwed in the back of the plate and everything. That's great, but I don't want that plate to be moving forwards and backwards. So that is the nose cone fastening system. So I wanted to make it a little bit stronger. So I added these L brackets. These are the same ones that we use on the inside of the SKYMASTER, like the servo mount. And then we're going to trim those off. So they're just tiny little stubs sticking out, and then we'll use the closest screw hole there to screw into the plate. So those do need to be cut, because when we go to put this in, we can't get it in because those guys are hitting the former. So that's why we need to cut those ones off. So I've just spot glued these in place with some medium CA. I'm going to cut these off with my bandsaw, confirm that everything's good. And then if everything's good, we're going to put some high sol around this and let that cure as well. All right, so we got the tray back in. It's just placed in there right now. The brackets are going to be stellar. So we have good access right here from this location. So probably going to paint those black, but we'll get our glue done up here next. And that's the last step to make this battery box perfect. Front section's all installed, painted our little mounts, and that is looking phenomenal. I'm very pleased with that. Starting to work in the front section and getting everything wrapped up here. So did some of my line running here. These are for the front doors, our gear lines. So those all had the T's already installed previously, so just hook those guys up. We are going to run our gear open close off of the gear down line. So the solenoid, I'm thinking I'm just going to mount it right in this location, or maybe right here. And we'll just power it from that lead right there. Used my shoelace and pulled the two leads here from the front through our through fitting. So I'm going to get those ends installed right now, get those plugged in, and then the board portion's pretty much done. We just have our air stuff and the rest of the organizing to run. All right, it is programming time for some of our devices. So what do we need? We need a battery. We need our jetty box, we need our devices, our compressor is in the aircraft. We also need to mount our pitot tube as well too, so there's still lots to do on this aircraft. So we have two things to program. Number one is our SE6, number two is our compressor. So SE6, let's do that one first. Okay, so we've got our radio on here, and let's take a look at things. So our central box that's in there, it's the 300 series, that only has 18 ports on the central box. We've got 19 and 20, which currently don't have anywhere to plug into, and that's where our SE6 module comes in play. So with the way this module works, we've got two things here. We've got our SE6 expander, and we've got the harness. Harness is nice because it uses an MR30 cable, heavy duty wire. That's why we order those things together. Now this isn't specifically just for Jetty, this works on many different radio systems. So you've got 6 ports here, 6 plugs. 1 through 6 can all be used as outputs or servo or programmable outputs. The reason 6 is marked in black is if you need to plug this into a port that's occupied, an EX bus port, and still have that device plugged in, you can either set 6 as a servo port or a device port. So we'll take a look at that when we plug it in and program it. But that's the SE6, awesome device, 4 to 14 volts. Now I don't recommend putting high draw servos through this. This is why we use it for air valves and all low voltage, low draw items. So let's go into the programming of this. So we need a Jetty box to program this. So we're going to plug our SE6 into the device port. We're going to plug our battery into the battery port. And that brings up the initial menu here. Now as you go through this, you'll see the light flash on and off. I think that's just because it's getting programmed. Now it's a very simple device. You basically have 3 menus. Actual values, we'll scroll through that quick because it's a pretty simple little menu. Go over, settings, and then service. Basically everything we're doing for programming is in the settings menu. So we're going to scroll down and the menu's laid out in an up-down sequence. So we've got language, period. These do come default to auto. I just changed that to 11 ms, which matches our other things. Now data port number 6. This is currently set to sensor EX. We'll leave it there. If you wanted to change it, the double arrows there means that you hold the button down and it changes it to servo. So now port number 6 is set up as a servo. We'll do it again and it's back. Then we go to next one down. And this is where we get into our channel setups, okay? So channel 1, which is on the device itself, so port 1, I guess, is settable this way. So we need to change port number 1 to 19. 19 is our Canopy lock. Channel 2, or port 2 on the SE6, we're going to change to 20, which is Canopy open close. And there we go. So 1 is 18, sorry, this should be 19, and 2 is 20. We'll just go through the other ones. They default to the standard function of the radio, and there we go. So that's it, that's programmed, all done. So when we plug this device now into a EX bus port on the central box, everything's operating. Port number 1 is going to be 19 on our radio. Port number 2 is going to be 20. All right, next device for programming is our V-Speak compressor. Very simple, much like the SE6 device. So we're going to plug that into our device port. We're going to plug a battery into the battery port, and that brings up the device. We're setting this up on auto, which is where it is. So compressor turns off at 8 bar. Now 6.8 or 6.89 bar is 100 PSI. So I think that 8 bar is about 125 PSI standard, which is for most airplanes is way too high. So we're going to change ours to 6.8 bar. Compressor turns on. We're going to turn that to, I think 5.9 is where we do it. I'll just ask Siri. Hey Siri, what is 85 PSI in bar?
85 psi is 5.86 bars.
There we go. So our compressor is going to turn on at 5.9 bar. On max, I like to drop this down to 60, 70, 80 seconds. We'll do 80 seconds so the compressor doesn't run too long. And that's it. Super simple, not calibrating. That's it. So very, very easy to program. Now when we take this out, it is programmed and ready to go. And that is going to wrap up video number 7 in the SKYMASTER F15 XXL build series. Lots to do still, guys. I decided to cut this video off because we are getting a little bit lengthy and we still have so much to do that's going to make up another entire video. So looking forward to finishing this off this weekend. It's Friday right now as we're recording this, and we're going to be doing the engine runs on this aircraft very soon. When I first started the F15 XXL, I figured it looked very simple, we'd be able to get it done pretty quickly, but it's going to end up taking right now, looks like about 110, 120 hours. So the typical large scale aircraft time, for me anyways, that's kind of what it ends up being. So coming together nicely. I'm very happy with the way this front tray turned out. So this is definitely a nice piece. I'm glad we went this route instead of doing the wood setup. And we're going to be doing the same thing on the SU, I believe, as well. So thank you guys for watching the build series. Thank you for watching my channel, and looking forward to wrapping this girl up. So stay tuned for possibly the final video. We might be doing 2 more depending on how the engine runs and CG and all that stuff times out. So thanks guys for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. I'm very excited to see everybody at Turbines and Tumbleweeds in Sweetwater, Texas, October 2nd to October 5th, 2025. See you there.